Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 1455 interview series. We are just rolling, writer after writer, person after person. I'm having a lot of fun, getting a lot of great feedback, so I appreciate you checking this out. Please spread the word and check out our YouTube page because it's getting filled with amazing content as this series continues. I'm really excited today to bring back, which is becoming a theme with 1455 already. We get people in and then we stalk them. So this is already a repeat visit from our friend Blayne Weaver, who those of you that are super 1455 fans know, in conjunction with our pals at the Alamo Film Club in Winchester, we had an event with a screening of his awesome movie Getaway, and we had a nice conversation which was recorded for posterity. So check out our YouTube page or our website for that full hour and a half extravaganza. But we have him here today. So we talked in that conversation more about filmmaking and that process. But Blayne, as you'll see in a second, is also a writer. So today it made a lot of sense to get him involved and put his writer's hat on and see what makes him tick from that perspective. So let me introduce our special guest and we'll get it on. Blayne Weaver has starred in, written, and directed the acclaimed romantic comedy 6 Month Rule. Previous films he's written and directed include Weather Girl and Outside Sales. He also co-wrote and acted in MANIC, as well as the Southern noir thriller Cut to the Chase. And most recently, Getaway, as previously mentioned, which I watched it and I loved it. So yes, we had an event with him and talked about it. But if you're an old school horror fan, check out Getaway. It delivers the goods, and it's almost Halloween, so couldn't be a better time. Blayne's numerous episodic television credits include ER, NCIS, and The Middleman. He also provided the voice of Peter Pan in the Disney animated feature Return to Neverland. And native of Bossier City, Louisiana, Blayne has studied acting in New York, Los Angeles, Oxford University, and graduated from UCLA with a degree in English literature. He currently runs the East Coast office of Secret Identity Pictures, and he's checking in from LA, where he is back in the golden glow of the West Coast after being out here in Winchester for a while. Blayne, thanks for being here. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so weird. It's always weird listening to the bio, isn't it? It's yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I did that. But thank you for the lovely introduction.
My pleasure. And it's a damn impressive resume. So I'm happy to read it. And I'm going to put us on the clock like I always do, 14 minutes and 55 seconds. Let's get it on. Blayne, the first book that either made you want to be a writer or a book that changed your life at an early age.
All right, well, I have kind of a two-part answer to this. So the book, I would say, was The Fountainhead. I know it's a little cliche. It's one of those books that, you read at like 20 or something like that, and you're like, whoa, this is really interesting. And then you get a little older and you learn a little bit more about Ayn Rand, and it becomes less attractive. But the first read of The Fountainhead was a turning point for me. But being that I write screenplays, I will say that, I think I might have told you a little bit about this story in our last talk, but I was doing a cowboy movie in Texas in the middle of nowhere, and I played Matt Damon's brother. And, he had to hang out with me. Matt was 25, and I was 18 at the time. But he, there was nothing to do on our downtime, and he was working on a little movie with Ben Affleck at the time, and they were faxing each other back and forth, these pages. And I was fascinated. I'm like, you're writing a movie to act in? I'm an actor. I want to write a movie to act in. And he let me read a very early draft of Good Will Hunting.
Wow.
And it was at that point, it was a spy movie. That's a true story, that Good Will Hunting used to be a spy movie. But I read it and I was so inspired by the work he was doing. It wasn't like this is the greatest piece of literature I've ever read or anything, but it was something letting me know that I could do that. And that's when I knew that I wanted to write and, be more a part of making movies than just standing in front of the camera.
That's unbelievable. Talk about street cred, an early draft of Good Will Hunting. Amazing.
It's crazy. It was crazy. And who knew, right? It was just some, guy who was kind of famous. He had been on stuff, but it wasn't after that we did that movie, he was in The Rainmaker, which I feel like was the first time I knew who he was, as a movie star, obviously. But just, inspiring the young guy who just happened to be playing his brother,
Yeah. Well, and props to you because you did it, right? I mean, as the bio demonstrated, actor, director, writer, like you're the rare triple crown in that industry.
Well, I'll take it.
Okay, so how about if you could say, because this is a tough question for anyone to answer, but who would you say your most profound artistic influence is?
So this is another one that has a bit of a story, and it's a little bit different probably than most of it. But I did this movie. My first script that I wrote with another writer named Michael Bacall, very talented writer, and we made this film together. And I disliked the director so intensely, and we got along so badly, and I remember thinking, I can't believe this guy's in charge, And I know it's a strange thing. And I think we might have touched on this before, but it was definitely a life-changing artistic influence of seeing what I don't want and being like, if he can do this, I can do it, and I can do it better and my way. And so for me, it was seeing the negative because I never wanted to be in charge before that movie. Like I was just like, no, I'm just sitting by the phone, wait for the call, and then show up and, do my little acting or, whatever. But it was the first time I'd had a script go into somebody else's hands. And I realized, being in charge is actually not that scary. So, not having control of the wheel in a bad situation, that's scary. So I know it's a strange answer to it, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, that was it. That was honestly game changer.
Well, and props to you, right? Because I think most people, even artists, get to that line in the sand where they see what they don't want to do or what they want to do, but doing it is a whole other level, which you did. So it did kind of put you on this trajectory. So
it certainly did. When I think about, turning points, like it's one of the biggest ones. It's the one that started me on the road I'm on now, which I think is so interesting because there's so few of those little moments that you can point to and be like, I wouldn't be standing here now if that experience had been different, you know?
Yep, absolutely. I have a feeling that you're going to sink your teeth into this one. How about an album or movie or both that you recommend without reservation?
So one of my deep held insecurities is my music love. I feel like I'm the lamest appreciator of music in the world. I still love Bon Jovi. I'm a classics guy. The bands that I liked when I was 13 are the bands that I like now. So I feel like there are other people better versed to talk about music. But for me, movie-wise, I never hesitate to recommend Casablanca. I think it's the best script ever. I think it's my favorite movie. And there was a time where I'd be like, oh, well, it's black and white and it's kind of boring. And it's like, but now I know it's still just as good today as it ever was. And you should watch it if you haven't seen it. And Back to the Future, which is funny because I deal with college students a lot now. And apparently I keep getting older. I wasn't aware that was a thing, but a lot of them haven't seen Back to the Future, which I find fascinating. This whole world where we don't have to watch reruns or the movie channels. We just get to choose what we watch. I mean, I never have seen the Brady Bunch if I was literally just tuning in to stuff I was interested in. I mean, we have to have some sense of history, don't we?
Indeed.
They've never seen Back to the Future.
That's crazy. Well, and they'll look at you and say that was 35. Think about when we were kids, how long 35 years, that was like black and white movies practically.
Exactly.
So let's not linger on how old and decrepit we are.
Exactly. Let's backseat that.
All right. Very difficult but fun question. How about the best first or last line of any book ever?
It actually is a pretty easy one for me because I have it tattooed right here. It is, isn't it pretty to think so, which is the last line from Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, which is my favorite book.
One of the great, I share your opinion, one of the great closing lines because it does whatever, it's everything. It sums up the book. It sums up the era. It sums up human. Yeah.
It's just, it really knocks it home. Like you've been reading this story about, this guy the whole time and that just sums it up. Exactly. Anyways, I think it's beautiful. And so I inked it onto my bod.
The first writer who could point to ink for an answer. So you win the Spirit Award. Yep.
Fantastic.
You're setting the bar really high, Blayne. All right, how about an underrated author that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Okay, this is also, I think, controversial.
Okay.
Stephen King. I know, underrated. He's a very rich man. I think he's underrated as far as his skill and ability. You know, I think that he's often thrown into a category of, popcorn, kind of writer. And I just think what impresses me most about Stephen King is how he switches genres all the time, but doesn't really get any credit for it. Like he'll write, a drama story from a woman's perspective and then jump over to like an action kind of thing and then jump over to a horror thing. And I just think, and so readable. I'm always impressed with him. To me, Stephen King is kind of the Tarantino of novelists, because like always switching and doing things with his own spin, obviously, but like in genres that I'm like, man, how do you write so many pages a day? How do you, come up with this? And where is this story going? I have no idea. I never know where it's going with him. Same thing with Tarantino. I've seen all of Tarantino's movies, obviously, and I am always admiring of what he's doing, but I can never figure out where he's going to go. It's like so many writers. Like I look at Aaron Sorkin. I love Aaron Sorkin, but I could probably script a pretty good. If you told me what the scene was, I could do an impression of Sorkin and find it. Right. Tarantino, I have no idea. Like at the end, everything catches on fire, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming."
Right. Well, and the thing about there's a lot. I totally endorse the King shout out and agree. And I think of the many things we could compliment, the thing that I always bring up with Stephen King, again, among many other accolades, is that guy's been rich since the 70s, and he gets up every
morning, and
does the work. And any writer should be in awe of that discipline and that passion. That alone is worthy of putting him as one of the immortals, to be doing it that long for that consistently.
Absolutely. Did you read On Writing?
Oh, yeah.
So good. So like, and one of those things that I put off forever. Like I didn't want to read any of Save the Cat or Script, or I didn't want to read any of those things. And I eventually read them, because I'm teaching classes and stuff. But On Writing, I did it, and I was just like, this is like a autobiography. Like it's fascinating. And you see that kind of drive of like, get up and, and just knock it out. You got to work every day.
That's right. Okay. My personal favorite question in the series: why have you not read Moby Dick? Or if you have, what's a classic that you've been meaning to get around to?
I like this question a lot too. Okay, so I have read Moby Dick. I am a English Lit major at UCLA, and they made us pretend to read everything. I don't know. Did you study English Lit in college?
I did. Yeah.
Right. So you can't really read Chaucer and Milton in the same 3 months. So Cliff Notes become a very a crutch that we use. But before I actually went to school, I kind of discovered when I moved to LA. So I went to acting school in New York for like a hot second, and then I got a job in LA, so I came to LA. But one thing I hated about the acting school was that nobody knew anything else but acting, and they were like proud of it, And I'm like, I really wanted to be, more interesting. So I got like a book of the top 100 books ever written. I'm sorry, a list. Top 100 books, top 100 movies, and I tried to like watch them all so that I could have like bragging rights. And that kind of led me to being an English Lit major, because that's really, English Lit major is very similar, where you can sit there and be like, when I was reading that tome. I did read Moby Dick. Not a huge fan. Way too much about the anatomy of whales, for instance. But I've never read Ulysses. And I feel like that's really good bragging rights. Mm-hmm. So like, of the young Blayne who would read a book just so he could put it on his shelf and say, yeah, totally read that. Actually, a lot of them are right there on that shelf right there. But Ulysses is one that is lacking on my shelf. Okay. And another one that I haven't read is Wuthering Heights, because I can't get through it. But I just don't care. I don't know why I can't wrap my head around it. I've read so many different types of books and always been able to find an access point. Heathcliff's just an asshole, man. Just an asshole. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and you know what? There's always something else to turn to. None of us are going to get through all these books, even if we try. So yeah, no one has time for a book that's not going to engage them.
Exactly.
So you're totally off the hook there.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is an impossible one for you because you're so diverse, as the bio indicated. But would you say that there's a single theme or issue that your work addresses or tries to address?
I mean, it feels kind of like a cop out, I think, because, most, movies have like this, this goal of, I would say the theme is imperfect people trying to better themselves at some point, but I mean, that's pretty much every movie. Every movie starts out with somebody who's got a flaw that they try to overcome. But I feel like I lean in a little bit more to the flaws. Like I like, an anti-hero. I like people that are, I prefer the Iron Man to the Captain America. That's always been kind of how I am. But I feel like that's a theme, and I also deal with a lot of love triangles for some reason. It's not anything I ever planned to do, but then there's these choices that a character has to make. Even if it's not a romantic comedy, it does seem to be something that shows up.
Okay, cool. So, how about writing routines? Do you have one? Do you believe in them?
I believe in routines. I believe in you have to, very much like we were saying about the Stephen King book, if you want to do this for a living, it's not, you can over romanticize it. Like I always say, if you have to light a candle and have your tea and have the Enya playing, then you're not really writing. You have to be able to have your coffee and hammer it out and know, like, as you're going, this sucks, it'll be better, next draft will be better, but you have to get those pages down. But the where I work the best, which I hesitate to share because it's not the most flattering portrayal, but I love to write at bars, usually bars of restaurants, because it's like less weird me sitting there with a computer, but having a couple of vodka and sodas and, just hammering through. For some reason, the action and the movement, I worked in restaurants for a really long time. I don't know if that's part of it, but I have like one drink and I just kind of like zone in, and then I get the distractions are super easy and people say hi and then you go right back down so you don't get bored at home.
Right. And what an appropriate answer for a guy with Hemingway ink on his phone.
Exactly. Write drunk, edit sober. Isn't that Hemingway?
I believe it is. I love it. All right, let's switch gears. How about a setback, artistic or otherwise, that either changed you or put you closer on the trajectory that you're on?
I had a couple of answers to this, but I think the biggest life-changing setback kind of thing was so after I did MANIC and I didn't like the director, I was making money doing the voice of Peter Pan, and I had bought a house, and I sold the house to finance my first feature as a director. And that was, you shouldn't do that, kids. Capital gains tax or something. I don't know. Just talk to an accountant before you do it. But it backfired tremendously financially. And I found myself in a hole that I didn't realize was there because of taxes and whatnot. And then I kind of assumed that my movie Outside Sales would sell for $1 billion, and it didn't. Very proud of that movie. For a kid that didn't know what he was doing, I really like that movie still, but it made no money. And I went from being this kind of hotshot Sundance alum, director, actor guy to, being completely broke, moving into this, what I call the hovel, which was this tiny little, horrible apartment, and close enough so that I could walk to the restaurant that I had to go to work at. But I fell far, man, like from the coolest, LA apartment to like the worst kind of thing. And I was there for a year. I signed a year-long lease, and it took me a year to get out of it. And during that year, I wrote 3 scripts, and they all got made. So like, as far as like artistic, trauma, that was very fulfilling. And I always look back on that and say, we just can't get back there. But if we do, I know we can get out of it again,
Listen, and I want to really, like, it's a theme that resurfaces in this series. I think anytime you talk to any writers, but man, perseverance. There's luck involved, there's talent involved,
Sure.
there's timing, but the one consistent theme I think across the board is persistence. And so props to you for having a hardship and writing through it, living through it. That's commendable and inspiring. So I really think this is a great question for you, because you are, diverse, and you have not followed a straight line and in the best possible way. But if you could describe, how would you say you've developed your career?
I've always said that, like, I kind of take the shotgun approach to working in the entertainment industry. It's like I try to do everything. I want to be whatever the modern equivalent is of a Renaissance man. I want to, write and direct and, act and produce. And I want to be someone that people turn to do anything. Like one of the things that Los Angeles often tries to do is put you in a box. I'm like, oh, you're a comedy guy. You're a romantic comedy guy. Oh, no, you're a thriller guy. It's like whatever your last project was, it's a very difficult box to get out of. And I try to defy that at every turn. My career has just been keep on keeping on, like I just keep wanting to make things. Like when things, I made a movie called 6 Month Rule, and that was a $1.5 million budget, which for me was a lot of money. And then I had trouble getting my next big movie going, and so instead of going bigger, I just went smaller, and I made Cut to the Chase for like $100,000. And like for me, it's about to continue to create work. I just know so many people who have disappeared from this business because the phone stopped ringing. And that's not, to me, a good enough reason. Like, the phone's going to stop ringing in this town. It's going to stop every 3 years, really, but it doesn't mean that, life as an artist should, just stop. It's like, I'm not waiting for somebody to hand me something. It's always nice. I love, last year I got called to act in 2 movies out of nowhere, people that I had built a relationship with. That's awesome. I didn't even have to audition for those things. I don't depend on those, but I love it when it happens.
Sure.
But I think it's the shotgun approach. Just go after being creative and creating things all the time.
Right on. Well, and kind of as a corollary to that, so how would you define literary or artistic success?
I think that it's a tough question. And for me, and this is what I often say to students that I deal with, because I deal with not only writers, but young directors and also actors. And all of them, I try to tell, you have to look, if you're going to do this, you have to look at yourself as an artist, not as a movie star, not as, a millionaire. It's like, if you base your success off of your creative integrity, then you're not going to get as sad as you will otherwise. I think being sad actually comes with the artistic temperament, and I'm fine with that. But like a body of work that I can look back on and be proud of, a body of work that I can look back and want to improve on, being happy with what I give to the world, that's really it. And that as artists, we're moving that line for ourselves all the time. Like sometimes we've achieved it, sometimes we're way far away from it. But for me, it's more about, it's certainly not about money, but I do like looking at that shelf of the, Blu-rays that I have of the movies that I've made or that I've touched in some way. Even like I wrote that, my name's not on it, but I wrote that. All right. That kind of thing is very satisfying to me. And, kind of my way of trying to cheat death, I guess.
Absolutely. And listen, sometimes you have to invoke the cliche. I think we all would agree. And again, this series and virtually every book of interviews I've ever read, the idea is, of course, it's a process, always. But if you're not in love with the process, you're not going to make it very far. Because if you think there's a destination and you get off at that stop and you're like, I'm here, very few, if any, and who would want to be that person anyway? Who would want to arrive as an artist and go, okay, I've done what I set out to do.
Yeah, it's daunting, but it's very much like directing a feature. Like you never, pass a finish line. You never, make a touchdown. You never get to put the ball down. Like every movie that I've directed, I have to basically carry it. We just moved into this new apartment and I've got boxes of hard drives. And she's like, so when can we get rid of these? I'm like, never. We can never get rid of them. We just have to keep backing them up because I am the keeper of the of the movie.
Yeah, of course. So you got to keep the torch flowing.
It's true.
How about something that you wish you had known 10 or even 20 years ago as an artist?
Organization has never been one of my strong suits. And before I was directing, I really played that whole actor thing. Like, I'm an actor, man. I don't keep track of that kind of thing. I don't, this isn't a business for me. It's art, all that stuff. But
Right.
making a point of keeping track of who you've met before, and what they do, it's like I always made excuses of like, it seems manipulative or mercenary for me to, try to get something out of somebody but like, I wouldn't even care who they were. Like I'd meet with somebody and I wouldn't look them up beforehand. I wouldn't put some effort into, keeping track of the business side of it. And I'm not saying that I wish I'd been better at the business side. I just wish that I, cared at all to keep those things organized. And like people who helped my career, who were like casting directors or agents or, behind the scenes producers, like I was just like, oh, thanks. And I moved on with my life. And I'm like, now I see young actors doing that. It irritates me. I'm like, actually, this is the editor of the movie. You don't know who they are, but you should, because they've been looking at your face for 6 weeks, that kind of narcissism, I guess, is normal in young artists, but I wish, like, I would try to beat it out of myself if I could talk to me when I was 20.
Yeah. Well, it's good advice for younger people, and perfect note to end on. How about a 1-minute exhortation for a young or beginning writer / artist who's looking for advice?
Okay, sure. Well, here it is, young person. You need to write. You need to write all the time. You need to keep your, laptop with you. And when there's downtime, write. If you don't actually like writing, you shouldn't do this because you have to write. And the truth is, I just read a quote the other day from somebody who, I don't remember who it was, but a very powerful LA, writer and showrunner, talking about how they didn't know one person in Los Angeles who was successful, who hadn't had their heart broken by a project falling apart at least 3 or 4 times. That's part of it. And it's supposed to be heartbreaking, but like, you need to prepare yourself for, it's not an easy path that you've chosen. It's an admirable one. It's an honorable profession and very exciting, and you're giving back to the world, but nobody cares if it makes you sad. And that, it's a sad truth, I think, but you need to be okay with it. What do you think? Is that too depressing? I tend to get depressing.
No, I mean, I think it's what I've found, Blayne, in this series is that the people that are very serious about this see it for what it is. It's a lifestyle, and so it's not something that you can measure with money or likes on Facebook. It's part of the process, and I think for any young artist to be disabused of the fact that it's very unlikely you're going to be rich. It's very unlikely you're going to be famous. But one thing I think we all can guarantee is, if you're not in love with the craft, why do it? Because there's a lot of other ways. You could go be a bank robber and have a much better chance of getting rich than being a writer and, getting that brass ring. So no, I don't think it's depressing. I don't think it's realistic, but it's also inspiring. I think if I were to say the 3 things that have come through here, right, are the 3 Ps, like passion, purpose, and perseverance. And it's clear, right? It's clear that you are in love with what you do and how you do it. And this is your life. It's just, it exudes from you. So I appreciate you dropping some knowledge and sharing that passion. And I also have to apologize. The ironies of life, only when I talk to a director, when we started, this is our first, I think, my first interview that's full on autumn. The sun was above my roof. We had perfect light. And right when the interview started, the sun started going down. So I hope this wasn't distracting. I must be killing you as a director, like, dude, get out of the light. But I didn't want to be professional. The show has to go on. I didn't want to leave the room.
Somebody needs to Hollywood a flag right there. Just block that light. Let's take that light down a couple of notches. I would have taken care of you if I had my toolkit.
Yeah. This is I need someone to look after me. But you didn't lose. You didn't get distracted. The answers were great. And Blaine, we really appreciate you taking the time. Folks, check out our interview that we did with Alamo, and check out his work online. Go visit. Blaine, help me. What is your website so people can go visit you?
It's Blayne Weaver with a Y .net, which is confusing. But also, I want to plug American Pie Girls Rules, which is a teen sex comedy that I wrote that just premiered on Netflix, and it's in the top 10 this week. So
Dude.
Check it out.
And you're still talking to me? Look, I'm talking to a rock star. Listen, I can't say enough good things. Every time I talk to you, I come away inspired and a little bit envious to have that kind of passion and that kind of enthusiasm and productivity, not least, is super inspiring. So we will talk again, my friend.
I look forward to it.
I know you're going back to Louisiana, so safe
back
travel.
To Louisiana for Getaway, and then I'll be here.
Keep plugging along, man, and we will keep tabs on you.
I love it. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, Blaine, take care and talk soon.
All right, cool.
All right.
Bye-bye.